Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Going over a little something about for veterans. It's asked a lot and it's kind of intuitively complicated. So I think it drives some people nuts. It's about TDIU versus SSDI. We've already talked a bit about 100% P&T and how an award of that does not equate with an award for Social Security disability. It's just the way it is. And we've explained why. And it's very similar actually for TDIU. Just as a refresher for those that might not be aware of TDIU, obviously those that have it are well aware of it. It is total disability based on individual unemployability. So basically, it's the VA's way of saying that you can't hold a regular job because of your service-connected disabilities. So we'll pay you as if you were 100% disabled under our ratings, even if you're not 100% disabled in terms of the rating system. It'll pay the 100% disability rate for a TDIU veteran, even if their combined service-connected rating is less than 100. If it decides that those service-connected conditions that you do have kind of make it impossible for you to, in their mind, maintain substantial gainful employment. Okay, so then the question is, if their decision is that you, as a TDI person, are unable to maintain substantial gainful employment, then why are you not prevailing on SSDI? And it basically boils down to the fact that it's two different rules when it comes to evidence admissibility, perhaps weighing the evidence. It's like going into two different courts and having two different juries, I suppose. That's probably not the best analogy, but it's the only thing I can come up with. So SSDI has a whole slew of policies that are not the same as the Veterans Administration or Veterans Affairs, and as such, they can come to a different conclusion. Maybe they're relying on a different set of jobs out there. Maybe a different subset of what is the available occupation base that they're looking at. I don't know if that's a difference that they have. I'm just putting it out there that because they're based on their own rules. Oops, I got to take this. Hold on a second. It's the hospital. Hold on. I'm sorry. And I don't even know where I left off, guys. I was just speaking to the hospital neurologist. Okay. So the conflict arises between the two, since it seems like they have the same definition, right? Can't do substantial work. That's the definition for SSDI. The conflict arises because the VA and the SSA do not have to agree on certain things. They're just different entities and different people. So they might not agree on how limited the veteran is in terms of sedentary versus less than sedentary or even light. Remember, the SSA has that grid regulation that the VA doesn't have. And I know we all love the grids, but look at this. This is a case where it doesn't meet the grids, you lose, but you won under VA. So you can love the grids or hate the grids. It depends on whether it works out for you, right? When it comes to the mental limitations, this is a tough one. The VA and the SSA don't always agree. I should say generally not about the fact of the mental limitation or the impairment or the diagnoses. It usually tends to be about how serious it is. With SSD, there is to show that someone can't do even a simple, I call it a third grader, simple, unskilled, third grade level, low stress, no dealing with the public, no dealing with coworkers, only occasionally dealing with a supervisor, simple one-step, two-step jobs. If one can prove that they have a substantial loss in a certain few mental tasks that are required for all jobs, the very simple all the way up, gotta include like being able to have an attention span at least for a certain duration, say 2 hours, even if it's for simple stuff, not needing excessive supervision all the time on you at all times. If the medical evidence says that, then you might be mentally disabled and only on the mental, no physical needed under SSD. However, for the VA, you probably don't have to be quite that bad. They probably don't have quite such a stringent criteria how they decide that. So the rules are all different. And again, like for example, the regulations are different. The grids exist in SSD and they don't exist the same under VA. Same thing about skills transferring. They might not have the same criteria about whether a skill that could grant a different job that the person could seemingly otherwise do, whether those skills transfer from what they learned to gain those skills at the more recent work. And again, then there's also the age category applications. They might not have the same borderline age rule. So you know how sometimes we've talked about this recently, and there is a video about borderline age. If you're not 50 yet, but you're 49, 10 months, they may, under certain circumstances, be able to let you get the benefit as if you were 50 when you're only 49 and 10 months. And so you would be counted as a 50-year-old and get that grid roll for a 50-year-old that doesn't exist for a 49-year-old, even though you're not 50 yet. That is an SSD thing. That might not be the same with VA. You know, the SSA can also choose factual and vocational findings that put you at light versus sedentary that you may need. And that would then put the disabled veteran in a not disabled grid category versus disabled grid category, because the RFC, residual functional capacity, is critical for grids. They can also treat the non-exertional limitations as not really dispositive, using the vocational testimony instead of some sort of direct rule. So all of that gets applied, and both the VA and the SSA have different ways of how they evaluate those things. Their rules are different. Their criteria are different. Their evidence analysis is different. So anyway, that is where it's about. It's about that they have different criteria and different ways of thinking about how vocational potentials apply and what residual functional capacity is and all that. So it's not so much that their rule of, hey, if you can't do substantial work, that's the same. It's how you get to that finding that they differ on. So I know it's really frustrating too, because, hey, you're like, hey, it's federal government. Shouldn't they be all unified? It's not. But anyway, just wanted to give that explanation. So if anybody is wondering, you know, one good thing though, if you're a veteran and you're applying for SSD and you've prevailed on your VA, you at least had some really substantial evidence. Usually the diagnosis are already there. It definitely beats someone who doesn't have that and is just starting out and saying, wow, I was going to my PCP and I have all these problems. And now they have to build that evidence, and it could take a couple of years before it's strong enough for an SSD or SSI claim. So you have that benefit of that VA treatment that you already got, because that's how you got your VA disability, which I'm so glad for you guys that you have it. It's well deserved, and I'm glad it's part of your compensation package. So anyway, have a great rest of your week, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Hello again. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful, if not just a little bit informative. In the event you have a Social Security question you want addressed, please feel free to make a comment below and ask the question, even if nothing to do with this particular video. And just a quick, again, reminder, we have our daily video shares and tips around noon every day of the week. And on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have our live Q&A session where you can come in live and enter your questions in the chat. And we all pretty much have a good time for an hour or two. I look forward to seeing you there, hopefully. And lastly, don't forget about our benefactor memberships. They're very reasonably priced. The first one is very nominal, and you get a few perks, but on a bigger scale, it contributes to us being able to fulfill a mission of assisting certain people with representation that would otherwise not be able to get it. We look forward to continuing to do that, and so far it's working out like the bomb. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Bye-bye now.